Hi, in this video I will be talking about matrices. Matrices are vectors with a dimension attribute, which is an integer vector of length 2, number of rows and number of columns. To create an empty matrix, I can use the function matrix, matrix, and I can define the number of rows and the number of columns, like number of rows here equal 2 and number of columns equal 3. So I've created here my matrix and it's an empty matrix. To know the dimension of a matrix, I can use the function dim of m, and here we go. I have this empty matrix with 2 rows and 3 columns. Same result is obtained by providing only one dimension. For example, so this time I don't have an empty matrix. I have these numbers from 1 to 6 in my matrix. Let me print this matrix. Let me check the dimension of this matrix. It's 2 rows, 3 columns, and the content of the matrix, let's print it. As you can see, matrices are constructed column-wise, so entries can be thought of starting in the upper left corner and running down the columns 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. If I want to create a matrix by row, I need to use the argument by row equal true, like this one. Matrix 1 to 9, number of rows equal 3, and by row equal true. Let's print the matrix. This time I have a matrix by row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Matrices can also be created directly from vectors by adding a dimension attribute. For example, this is a sequence, a vector, and I will add a dimension attribute . Let's print m, and here we have a matrix with 2 rows and 5 columns and containing numbers from 1 to 10. Matrices can be created by column binding or row binding with the cbind and rbind functions. For example, this is the first vector x. This is the second vector y, and now I will column bind x and y. Let's print our matrix, and here we go. We have these 2 vectors. We call bind these 2 vectors to get this new matrix. Let's use the row binding function. And this is x and this is y. We can also add columns to our matrix, for example, using cbind to x. We've added a column to x, and we can also add a row to x. Here we go. This is x, and this is my new row. I can also remove a row from my matrix. For example, like this, I'm removing the last row. So this Y was my Z matrix with 3 rows, and I removed 1 row by adding the same matrix with only 2 rows, because here we have the rows and after the comma we call the columns. Now, how to access or change columns and rows in a matrix. It is possible to name the rows and columns of matrix during creation by passing a 2-element list to the argument dim names. For example, this is my matrix. I want a number of row equal 3 and dim names equal list of, let's say here we have X, Y, and C of A, B, and C. I've created the matrix. Now I need to print the matrix, and here we go. I gave names to columns and to the rows by using the dim names argument and defining a list of names for the rows and for the columns. To access or change columns and rows, you can assign the vector of names to column names or row names. Example, column names of X equal C of C1, C2, and C3. Let's print X, and here I've changed the names of the columns. Now, how to access elements of a matrix? If I want to select rows 1 and 2 and columns 2 and 3, I can use this way. Before the comma, I call the rows, and after the comma, I call the columns. I'm selecting rows 1 and 2 and columns 2 and 3. Rows 1 and 2, X and Y, and columns 2 and 3, C2 and C3. I can leave the columns field blank if I want to select entire columns. For example, C of 3, 2, and I will leave the column field blank. Here we go. These are my 2 rows, 3 and 2, and my 3 columns are here. I can also select all rows except first, -1, and here we go. Now, how to modify a matrix in R? If I want to modify a single element, I just need to replace it. Here I'm selecting, for example, the second element in the second row and the second column, and I will replace it by the number 10. Let's print X. This is my second element from the second row and the second column. Now it is 10. I can also modify element with a condition. All the elements that are less than 5, I want to replace them with 0. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4 here. I've replaced this number with 0. In R, I can also transpose a matrix. To transpose a matrix, the function T is used. For example, T of X. Rows became columns and columns became rows. Thank you.